Real Madrid. The name itself evokes images of European glory, 13 Champions League titles. A history filled with legendary players and unforgettable triumphs, but even giants can stumble. And on a cold April night in London, Real Madrid's aura of invincibility shattered. The 2025 Champions League campaign was supposed to be different. Real Madrid, under the steady hand of Carlo Ancelotti, were aiming for their 16th title. They had navigated the group stages with relative ease. The knockout rounds, however, would prove to be their undoing. A humbling defeat at the hands of Arsenal exposed the cracks in Real Madrid's foundation, leaving fans and pundits alike questioning the future of this once unstoppable force. The loss stung. It wasn't just the scoreline, though a 3-0 drubbing was bad enough. It was the manner of the defeat, the lack of fight. The sense that Real Madrid, a team that had so often snatched victory from the jaws of defeat, had simply given up. This was not the Real Madrid of old. This was a team shorn of its confidence, its swagger replaced by a worrying sense of fragility. The kings of Europe had been dethroned, and the manner of their downfall was as shocking as it was painful to watch. The Emirates Stadium, Arsenal's home ground, had been a fortress all season. But even the most optimistic Arsenal supporter could not have predicted the events that unfolded on that fateful night. Real Madrid, despite their pedigree, seemed overwhelmed by the occasion. The atmosphere was electric, the home crowd roaring their team forward. Arsenal's Declan Rice, a player transformed under Mikel Arteta's guidance, ran the show in midfield. His 2 first-half goals, both from expertly taken free kicks, left Real Madrid reeling. The first, a curling effort that sailed past a helpless Thibaut Courtois, set the tone for the night. The second, an unstoppable rocket from 30 yards, left no doubt about the outcome. Mikel Merino added a third late in the second half, capitalizing on a defensive error to compound Real Madrid's misery. The final whistle blew, and the silence from the away end was deafening. Real Madrid had been outplayed, outfought and outclassed. The 3-0 scoreline flattered them. In the midst of the wreckage, one player stood tall. Vinicius Jr., Real Madrid's Brazilian winger, was a lone beacon of hope in an otherwise dismal performance. He was a constant threat down the left flank, his pace and trickery causing Arsenal problems all night. Time and time again he drove at the Arsenal defence, desperate to spark a comeback. But football is a team sport, and despite Vinicius's best efforts, Real Madrid's other stars were anonymous. Karim Benzema, so often the hero on big European nights, cut a frustrated figure. Luka Modric, the veteran Croatian midfielder, seemed unable to exert his usual influence on the game. The second leg, back at the Santiago Bernabeu, offered a glimmer of hope. Surely in front of their own fans, Real Madrid could overturn the deficit. The history books offered some encouragement. Los Blancos had made a habit of producing miraculous comebacks in the Champions League. But this time it felt different. The air was thick with a sense of resignation. The 3-0 defeat in London had taken its toll. The return leg, played out in a subdued atmosphere at the Bernabeu, ended in a goalless draw. Real Madrid, despite their best efforts, could not find a way past a resolute Arsenal defence. The final whistle blew, confirming their elimination from the Champions League. The inquest was swift and brutal. Questions were asked about the team's mentality, their desire, their hunger. Had Real Madrid become complacent, resting on their laurels? Had the winning habit become a distant memory? The calls for change were deafening. Fans and pundits alike demanded a major overhaul of the squad. Some even questioned the future of Carlo Ancelotti, suggesting that the Italian's time at the Bernabeu might be coming to an end. Section 5. The missing pieces. The absence of key players certainly played a part in Real Madrid's downfall. Ferland Mendy, their first-choice left-back, missed both legs through injury. Eder Militao, their rock at the heart of defence, was also sidelined. And Eduardo Camavinga, the young French midfielder, was suspended for the second leg after picking up a yellow card in London. These absences exposed the lack of depth in Real Madrid's squad. The replacements, while talented, lacked the experience and the quality to fill the void left by the missing starters. The likes of Dani Ceballos and Aurelien Tchouameni, while promising prospects, were unable to replicate the impact of the injured stars. The absence of Casemiro, who had left for Manchester United the previous summer, was also keenly felt. The Brazilian had been the anchor of Real Madrid's midfield for years, providing defensive solidity and allowing the likes of Modric and Toni Kroos to flourish further forward. Without him, Real Madrid's midfield lacked bite and protection, leaving their defence exposed. Section 6, A History of Heartache. The defeat to Arsenal was particularly painful given the history between the two sides. Real Madrid had never beaten Arsenal in a two-legged European tie. The Gunners had knocked them out of the Champions League in 2006 and again in 2020. This latest defeat, therefore, felt like a case of history repeating itself. But it was the manner of the defeat that hurt the most. Real Madrid had been outplayed in every department. They had been second best to every ball, every tackle, every loose ball. They had lacked the intensity, the aggression, the fight that had become synonymous with Real Madrid teams of the past. This was not a one-off. It was a continuation of a worrying trend that had been developing throughout the season. Section 7, Picking up the pieces. The Champions League dream was over, but Real Madrid's season was far from finished. They were still in contention for the La Liga title, albeit trailing Barcelona by a significant margin. They also had the Copa del Rey final to look forward to, where they would face their city rivals, Atletico Madrid. The focus now had to be on regrouping, on rediscovering their form, on salvaging something from a season that had promised so much but had delivered so little. The first opportunity to do so would come on the weekend, when Real Madrid travelled to the Basque Country to face Athletic Club of Bilbao in La Liga. Section 8. Carlo's conundrum. Carlo Ancelotti, the man who had led Real Madrid to Champions League glory just 2 seasons earlier, was now facing the biggest test of his managerial career. The Italian, known for his calm demeanour and his ability to get the best out of his players, was suddenly under immense pressure. The rumours had already begun to circulate. Some suggested that Ancelotti was losing the dressing room, that his methods were no longer getting through to the players. Others pointed to the fact that he had been in the job for 2 years and that perhaps it was time for a fresh approach. Ancelotti, however, was adamant that he was the right man to turn things around. He spoke of the need for patience, for unity, for hard work. He insisted that this Real Madrid team still had the quality to win trophies. But the clock was ticking. Section 9, The Road Ahead. The road ahead for Real Madrid was uncertain. The Champions League exit had left a scar, and it was unclear how long it would take for the wounds to heal. The team was in need of a major overhaul, both in terms of personnel and mentality. The upcoming match against Athletic Bilbao would be a test of Real Madrid's character. Would they crumble under the pressure, or would they rise to the challenge? The answer to that question would likely determine the course of their season, and perhaps even the future of the club.